If you are watching this video right now, look around you. The ground beneath your feet is moving through space at over 100,000 kilometers per hour. But 400 years ago, saying this simple fact could destroy your life. One man dared to say it anyway. He did not lead an army. He did not start a revolution. He only looked through a telescope, and what he saw in the night sky would bring him face to face with the most powerful court in Europe. His name was Galileo Galilei, and before his life ended, he would be forced to deny the truth of the universe. But the strangest part of this story is not the trial. It is what Galileo whispered after the trial ended. Galileo was born in Pisa, Italy, in 1564. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, believed that authority should always be questioned. Young Galileo grew up surrounded by music, mathematics, and curiosity. His family struggled financially, and his father wanted him to become a doctor. So Galileo entered the University of Pisa to study medicine. One afternoon inside a cathedral, he noticed a large lamp swinging slowly from the ceiling, back and forth, and he realized that even when the swing became smaller, the timing stayed the same. This small observation showed him that nature followed hidden mathematical rules, and it sparked a curiosity that would eventually challenge the entire universe. At that time, most people believed the Earth stood still at the center of the universe, an idea taught for nearly 2,000 years by Aristotle and Claudius Ptolemy and supported by the Church. But in 1609, Galileo heard about a new invention from the Netherlands, a telescope, and he began building his own. Night after night, he improved it until it could magnify objects 20 times. And instead of pointing it toward the land or sea, he pointed it at the sky. What he witnessed was breathtaking. He saw mountains and craters on the moon, proving it was not a perfect celestial sphere. He saw that the Milky Way was made of countless individual stars, invisible to the naked eye. Most shocking of all, he discovered 4 small moons orbiting Jupiter. This was the moment that changed everything. If moons could orbit Jupiter, then not everything in the heavens revolved around the Earth. The ancient model of the universe was beginning to crack. Excited by his discoveries, Galileo published a small book called The Starry Messenger, which became an instant sensation across Europe. He was celebrated as a hero, a new Columbus of the heavens. But his findings also attracted powerful enemies. The Church, which held immense political and spiritual authority, saw his work as a direct threat to its teachings and to the established social order. They warned him to stop promoting the idea that the Earth moved. For a time, Galileo complied, focusing on other scientific work. But the truth of the cosmos was a fire he could not extinguish. Years later, in 1632, he published his most famous and dangerous work, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. In it, he presented a conversation comparing the old Earth-centered model with the new Sun-centered one. Although he claimed to be neutral, his arguments overwhelmingly favored the Sun-centered universe. The Pope, once a friend of Galileo, felt personally mocked by the book. The full power of the Inquisition was turned against him. At nearly 70 years old, frail and in poor health, Galileo was summoned to Rome to stand trial for heresy. Under the threat of torture, exhausted and alone, Galileo was forced to get on his knees before the cardinals of the Inquisition. He was made to abjure, curse, and detest the truth he had spent his life uncovering. He publicly denied that the Earth moved around the sun. His spirit was broken, and he was sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. But as he rose from his knees, legend says he whispered something under his breath, a final act of defiance, and yet it moves. Galileo spent his final years blind, a prisoner in his own home, but he never stopped working. Even in darkness, he continued to write, dictating his final thoughts on motion and mechanics, which would later inspire scientists like Isaac Newton. His story is not just about a conflict between science and religion. It is a story about the human spirit, about the courage to question what we are told and the unstoppable power of a single idea. Galileo's vision was silenced, but the truth he revealed could not be contained. It eventually spread across the world, forever changing our place in the cosmos. His life reminds us that even when faced with overwhelming power, the quiet pursuit of truth can echo through centuries. In the quiet of a Padua night, a man pointed a strange new instrument toward the heavens, expecting to find perfection. The year was 1609, and Galileo Galilei was about to shatter the world's most sacred beliefs. When he looked at the moon, he did not see the flawless, celestial sphere described in ancient texts. Instead, his telescope revealed a rugged, imperfect world, scarred with mountains, valleys, and shadows, much like our own. The heavens, it seemed, were not as divine as everyone had believed. This single observation was a crack in the foundation of a worldview that had stood for centuries. But Galileo's journey into the unknown had only just begun. What he would discover next would not only change the course of science, but would also set him on a collision course with the most powerful institution on Earth. His gaze soon turned to Jupiter, the great king of the planets. In January of 1610, he noticed 3 faint, unfamiliar points of light twinkling beside it. He assumed they were distant stars, but when he observed them again the following night, something was different. They had moved. Night after night, he meticulously documented their strange dance, his heart pounding with a revelation that defied all logic. These were not stars. They were moons, 4 of them in total, circling Jupiter just as our moon circles the Earth. The discovery of these Medicean stars, as he named them, was revolutionary. It was the first visual proof that not everything in the universe revolved around our world. The ancient model, with Earth at the very center of all creation, was starting to crumble. This discovery gave powerful ammunition to a radical new idea, one proposed decades earlier by a Polish astronomer named Nicolaus Copernicus. He had dared to suggest that the sun, not the Earth, was the true center of our system. Galileo's own observations seemed to confirm it. He watched Venus go through phases, just like our moon, something that could only happen if it orbited the sun. The imperfections of the moon, the moons of Jupiter, the phases of Venus, all the evidence pointed to a single profound conclusion. Earth was just another planet, moving through the vastness of space. He began to teach this new cosmology, and while it ignited the minds of fellow scientists, it also kindled the fury of those who saw it as a direct challenge to scripture and tradition. The universe was God's perfect creation, and to question its structure was to question God himself. The growing controversy could not be ignored. In 1616, Galileo was summoned to Rome to face the formidable Cardinal Robert Bellarmine, one of the most powerful figures in the Church. In a tense meeting, the cardinal delivered a stern warning. Galileo was forbidden from holding, teaching, or defending the sun-centered theory as an established truth. It could be discussed only as a hypothesis, a mathematical curiosity, but not as reality. For the sake of his safety and career, Galileo agreed. He fell silent on the matter, retreating from the public debate for years, though the truth he had witnessed burned within him. He waited, hoping for a time when the world might be ready to listen. Years later, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. His old friend and admirer, Maffeo Barberini, was elected pope, taking the name Urban VIII. Galileo believed this was his chance. He thought that with a man of intellect and reason on the papal throne, an open and honest debate would finally be possible. He poured his life's work into a new book, a masterpiece of scientific rhetoric titled Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. Published in 1632, it presented a conversation between three men. One defended the new Copernican system, another argued for the old Earth-centered model, and a third acted as an impartial observer. But Galileo's pen was sharp, perhaps too sharp. The character defending the old system, named Simplicio, came across as stubborn and foolish. To many, his arguments seemed to mock the very words of the Pope himself. The book was a sensation, but its success came at a terrible price. The Pope felt betrayed and publicly humiliated, and the gears of the Inquisition began to turn once more, this time with Galileo as their sole focus. The old astronomer, now nearly 70 years old, was once again ordered to Rome to stand trial for heresy. His groundbreaking discoveries, which had unveiled the true mechanics of our cosmos, were now the evidence of his crime. The trial marked the tragic culmination of his life's work, a clash between science and faith that would echo through the centuries. Galileo's defiance in the face of overwhelming authority transformed him from a mere astronomer into a powerful symbol of intellectual freedom. His story reminds us that progress often requires immense courage, and that the pursuit of truth can sometimes lead us down the most dangerous paths. The universe he revealed was far larger and more complex than anyone had ever imagined, a place of constant motion and endless discovery. His journey forces us to wonder about the hidden truths that still lie beyond our understanding, waiting for the next curious mind to look up and question everything. In 1633, an old man was summoned to Rome. He was nearly 70, his body weakened by sickness, his eyes dimmed by age. This was Galileo Galilei, a mind that had journeyed to the stars, now facing the rigid walls of the Inquisition. Inside the solemn chambers, he stood before judges who accused him of a grave offense, spreading ideas that contradicted Scripture. They claimed his science was heresy. Under the weight of immense pressure, Galileo knelt. He publicly denied the truth he had spent his life uncovering, the idea that the earth moved around the sun. The court declared him guilty, sentencing him to house arrest for the rest of his days. But as legend tells it, after rising from his knees and leaving the courtroom, he whispered a defiant truth to himself. A phrase that would echo through the centuries: "Eppur si muove, and yet it moves." Confined to his home near Florence, Galileo's world shrank to the walls of his villa. His physical sight, which had once peered deeper into the cosmos than any before him, faded into complete blindness. But the light within his mind refused to be extinguished. His spirit, unbroken, continued its relentless work. In these final, isolated years, he composed his last great masterpiece, Two New Sciences. This final work was not about the stars, but about the world right here on Earth. It laid down the fundamental laws of motion and explained the mechanics of falling objects. This book became a secret torch passed into the hands of future generations, a foundation that would later inspire the revolutionary discoveries of scientists like Isaac Newton. Galileo's body was imprisoned, but his ideas had been set free. Galileo died in 1642, a prisoner in his own home. The universe he had revealed, however, could not be silenced or hidden away. The seeds of his discoveries had been planted, and they would grow to reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. More than 3 centuries later, the institution that had condemned him finally acknowledged its error. In 1992, the Catholic Church formally admitted its mistake in the trial of Galileo. Today, Galileo is remembered not as a heretic, but as the father of modern physics and a pioneer of observational astronomy. He was a man who dared to look through a simple telescope and believe the evidence of his own eyes over the dictates of authority. His story reminds us that truth does not depend on power or consensus. It reveals that sometimes all it takes to change the world is one person, brave enough to gaze at the heavens and whisper a truth that, against all odds, continues to move. If you enjoy uncovering the stories of those who dared to change our world, consider subscribing to our channel for more journeys into history. We'd also love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments which historical figure you would like us to explore next.